Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Barden here. Today, I'm going to be going over a set of slides that kind of covers everything from the first meeting of the sound reinforcement class here. So I'm excited to kind of dive into all of the material. The first half of this is probably going to be just going over the various topics that we're going to be covering this semester, some of the projects and assignments, things like that. Again, I'll have a separate video about the syllabus. I'll be going over all that kind of stuff in class, but this is just taking the core information and condensing it down to its important elements. The second half of this will be going over some more of the content, kind of the different locations where you might see these live sound systems and the various needs and requirements that they all have. So with that being said, let's just dive right into it and get going there. So we're going to be covering a variety of things throughout the semester, all of which are kind of combined to what goes into a live sound system. So I've got the core components here listed on the screen, and you can kind of think of each of these bullet points as a unit in this course. So we'll be talking a little bit about the audio sources, microphones, routing, processing, outputs and speakers, a little bit of room acoustics, things like that. Basically, all of the things that you would need to be aware of in order to be able to, set up and identify it, and if absolutely needed to run a bit of a live audio system there. So we'll have a mixture of talking about it in class, getting some hands-on experience, things like that in the core computer lab room, and then we'll be occasionally going over to the recital hall and working with the system in there, and again, getting some hands-on experience doing this. So I'm going to be going through each of these over the next few slides and going over some of the more specific things that we'll be talking about, but I'm not going to be diving into that content at this time. There'll be, times for that throughout the semester. So a few things to consider for each of these, specifically audio sources, is, this is what is making the sound that we're wanting to run through the system. So it's usually vocals or instruments, but it can be, again, any kind of audio that you want to run through this system and output to the speakers for everyone to hear. It can be whatever you want. But some of the things that you need to kind of be aware of as you're setting all of this up, getting it ready to go is, how many sound sources do you have? Do you have the, multiple guitars or vocalists, or, are you streaming audio from somewhere, playing back a file? How many sources do you need to work with in your system? And in the case of, if it's on a stage, where are they physically located? Are you going to be doing any kind of, amplification, the miking system, any audio effects or processing, all these things you need to kind of be aware of for your system, because it's going to change what you need in order to be successful and make sure that the audience can hear everything they need to hear. As for microphones, I like to think of them as an electronic ear. Their job is to take the sound waves coming out of the sound source and convert that into an electric signal that we can then run through the system, or convert to, ones and zeros if it's a digital system. All that kind of stuff. They're basically, without these, you're not going to hear anything. You need to have the microphones. And going back to the sound sources, how many do you need? And do you need different kinds of microphones? Another thing a lot of people tend to forget about is, how is the performer going to be interacting with it? Is the mic just going to sit on a stand? Are they going to hold it? Is it wired versus wireless? Is it something they're wearing or clipping onto onto their outfit? Is it like a boom mic that someone's holding? These are all, things to be aware of, because they're all, again, going to change the specifics of what's going on. We're also going to be talking about how to minimize microphone feedback, because that is probably the most common issue outside of just not being able to hear things properly that people run into with these systems. I'm sure you can all think of a time when you had some very not fun feedback happening at a live sound anything. All right. As for routing and processing, this is where we're going to be talking a bit about mixers. So we're going to get some hands-on experience with both analog and digital mixers. Kind of go into what goes for each of them, what makes them unique and different from each other, when you might have one versus the other, how they work. Using the mixers, where can we send the audio? Is it going to be monitor mixes, room speakers, or kind of be the core ones we'll be focusing on, but there's definitely more options. Are those speakers going to be different kinds of speakers? There we'll talk more about the point source and line arrays later on, but basically where are we sending it and what's that thing being sent to? Is there any kind of, again, processing like speaker management, effects, EQ, compression, reverb, probably gonna be the most common ones that we'll talk about, but there can be additional processing as well. All right, getting out there for audio outputs, we'll be focusing again on the speakers. Much like with the microphones, if you don't have the speakers, you're not going to hear anything because these are what, again, output the sound audio. So we'll be focusing kind of on the difference between active and passive speakers, the pros and cons of each, when you would use one over the other, and then how they both work. We'll also be talking a little bit about room acoustics. I'm not going to focus on that right now, but that is just another thing to be aware of. That's going to be kind of right at the very end of the course once we've got the system all set up and worked through all of that. So there will be room acoustics, but again, we're not hopping too much into that. This is going to be kind of a very general overview. So moving on, we do have some labs and projects throughout the semester. There will be a few other smaller assignments. I'll talk about those in class and in the syllabus, but these are some of the bigger ones to focus on. So first off, we will have a few of what I'm calling the soldering labs, and these are where we're going to be working in the computer lab, kind of our classroom space, and working with soldering irons to create a few things. So it's a very important skill to have if you're working in live sound, to be able to create or repair whatever kind of audio cables you need. Because if something breaks cable-wise, you're kind of out of luck. So you need to be able to do that. So we'll be having two labs throughout the semester on this. One is going to be focused on the cable itself, and you actually will be making your own cable for you to be able to use, and that'll just be your cable. It'll be a bit of fun there. And the other one will be on microphones, and you'll be creating your own contact mic and making some recordings or amplifying the sound with that. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. I do just want to point out, though, in advance that soldering irons are very hot, several hundreds of degrees there. So I'm going to be giving you very specific instructions, especially if you have not touched a soldering iron before, and just make sure you follow those instructions, because I don't want anyone to get burned or something to get melted, or gosh, I hope not to set on fire. Just follow the instructions. If you do that, they're very safe. If you're messing around, we're going to have some problems. So just follow those instructions. I found this obviously photoshopped stock image of a person soldering, and they are not following instructions. I mean, safety goggles good, but they're currently touching the part of the soldering iron that gets to 600 degrees, so that they would have major burns. So again, just follow the instructions and you'll be good to go. Other than that, again, outside of the smaller assignments, you will have two little reports to give. And basically, for these reports, you'll be going out to wherever, doesn't really matter where, but listening to some kind of live sound reinforcement. The idea is it being like a concert or something of that nature. But basically, you need to, at this venue, at this performance, be checking out, hey, what are they doing with this sound reinforcement? How does it relate back to the class? What are the components that you see and notice? How are they being used? Did you feel like it was effective? Things like that. I'll give more info on this and all the other projects as it gets a little closer, but these are, again, the core elements, is going out and seeing how these are used in the real world there. So And then as we get to it, there will be a final presentation here. And again, I'll go through the specifics of it as it gets a little bit closer, and we've covered the majority of the course content. But the big strokes are that you'll be designing a sound system for a hypothetical music performance at a local venue of your choice. Basically, you have a budget of $15,000 hypothetical dollars to get all of the gear you need. Basically everything except the performer's instruments. You can get it set up, and then for this performance, again, your goal is to make sure that everyone can hear everything. It's good to go. Basically, you're going to be covering the stage setup for all the performers, the gear that you chose, why you chose it, and anything else that needs to be considered for that performance to be as good as it can be. Those are the core parts of that final project. And again, I'll talk about that as it gets a little bit closer. Just be aware that that is happening. Okay, so those are, again, the broad strokes of the course itself. The remainder of this video is going to be about different kinds of sound systems, in the sense of different places that have them and the various concerns that they have, the needs they have to fulfill, things of that nature. So I'm not going to go through every single one mentioned in the textbook in as much detail there, so definitely refer back to the textbook for more information. I'm, again, covering the broad strokes of all of these, because otherwise this video would be 3 hours long, and no one got time for that. So for the sound systems, I guarantee you've already, I say seen them, but heard them really there. So before I hop into the different ones and what they have entail for them, basically they all have the same general goal, and I've tried to make this as broad as possible here, and that is the goal is that they have an intended audience. Let's say you are that audience. Is the goal is for you to hear whatever the intended audio source is as clearly as possible. So it doesn't matter if it's music, audio recordings, individual instruments, just vocal speakers, alarm sounds, anything. The goal is for you to be able to hear what you need to hear when you hear it. Now, the specifics of all of this are vastly different depending on a ton of factors that we're going to talk about. A few of those being the size and the format of the venue, the acoustics of the room, all that kind of stuff. It can all play into what makes one system different from another, but they all have that same goal. And I just want to draw attention to this last bullet point here, is that if ideally no one is really going to notice a properly set up system, because at that point they can hear everything properly, it's all clear, it's all balanced, it's good to go. But people are definitely going to notice a bad setup, whether that be because things are not loud enough at certain areas, there's weird delays, things out of sync, maybe something sounds a little muffled like this. So you know what I'm saying, that would be really cool, and I bet really could. The caption is doing a surprisingly good job. Again, people are going to notice when there's problems, and I'm not going to blast feedback through this recording, but that would be another thing. So again, if you're doing your job right, most people aren't even going to notice it, and that's kind of the goal. All right, so the next big chunk is going to be talking about different places that have different sound systems and how they're all, related but different from each other. So the first kind of group I've put together here are performance venues, and this can be a variety of different kinds. Basically anything with a stage, whether that be just a tiny little stage with two left and right speaker, maybe a sub set up to a big concert venue or auditorium, or a church, big outdoor venue, things like that. Basically, they all have the same generalized goal of taking whatever's happening on the stage and making sure that everyone can hear it properly. That's the goal. So they want to take the sound and disperse it so everyone can hear it and basically be hearing the same thing no matter where you are within the venue. All right. Emergency alarms. So, as for what this is, what they can include, I feel like it's fairly self-explanatory. If you've ever heard a fire alarm or a thunderstorm lightning strike warning, things like that, tornado alarms, these are all still kind of sound reinforcement systems. They work a little bit differently, and their goal is to detect the trigger for an alarm, whether that be, an automatic, hey, lightning struck, or, someone pulling a fire alarm, something like that. There's some kind of trigger. And when that trigger goes off, it's going to play the desired alarm sound, whether that be a very loud beep or a buzz or a pre-recorded message, whatever. It's going to play the desired sound in the appropriate area. And more times than not, it's going to be very loud. Because again, the idea is that it's warning you that there's some kind of danger. It needs to get your attention. So these alarm systems fall into a category of sound reinforcement as well. Museums have a lot of flexibility to what can be in a sound system. So you've got maybe something that's like a full range setup here. So maybe you've got some speakers set up and they can play announcements like, hey, the museum is closing in 20 minutes, kind of a thing. The idea being that everyone here can hear what's going on. There can be smaller local audio outputs, maybe at a specific exhibit here, and it's just talking about what's happening at the exhibit. It could be interactive, could just be a thing playing on loop, but the idea is that it's local to just one small area. Another thing that's pretty common is maybe a tour guide has a microphone, and they're you're walking around listening to the tour on your headset. You're hearing what's going on. It's super cool and informative. Maybe it's again responding to your location and where you are, but that is, you could be in different places and hear certain things. So the goal of these are a little bit different, probably with the exception of the big speakers for everyone to hear. None of these have the sound traveling super far or being super loud. The idea is that the listener is close to the sound source. Because, if you think about it, maybe you're over here by the animals. I'm not sure what these are. Again, stock footage is fun. Over here, you're hearing what's happening here, but you don't really want to hear what's going on over at the paintings on the third floor. Again, if there's just loud sound coming from everywhere, it's going to be what I call just acoustically muddy, where you can't hear everything. It's loud, it's confusing. If you were on the headset tour, maybe you don't want to be hearing 3 other tours going on at the same time. You want to be hearing just what you want to hear, where you want to hear it. So again, it's less like a big performance stage where it's just blasting the sound to everyone equally. Here we have a lot more smaller moving parts working together. Clubs and DJ venues, very similar to, again, the performance spaces, but maybe with a few other considerations there. So maybe you're keeping that sound localized, again, to a smaller area, but it's still a bit louder. Maybe you have a few different places with different sound needs. So maybe one room has a different sound, or you've got like a control room so the DJ can play in the different sounds and adjust various tempos or keys and transition from song to song, and that's all different than what would be going out to the main dance floor or club area. So again, similar to the performance venues, a few other things to think about. And then I think this should be the last slide here. Again, I'm not going over every single thing in the book, but the core ones that, at least in my experiences, I've seen all over the place, and I'm pretty confident you would have as well. And the last one I have here is restaurants. So a restaurant can have, again, kind of like the DJ setup, different areas needing different things. So maybe you've got audio pagers. I was at Tasty Pizza the other day, and they've got their microphone set up so that way they can be like, "Hey, Matt, your pizza's ready. Come get it." And that's, going out to the whole system. And maybe you're at a place that they've got some background music playing, or a TV audio, maybe at a bar or something there. And these are all slightly different sources. So the main goal is ideally, it's not too distracting, it's background music, but maybe different areas of the restaurant have different levels. So maybe, the outdoor patio is playing different music at a different level than an intimate little dining room or the bar area. They're all slightly different. They have kind of a consolidated single area where you can control the levels and the sources, things like that. And a lot of times I've seen that they have multiple source options. So that way, maybe you could play something off of Spotify, or if someone's coming in and renting out a room, they could connect their laptop or whatever, or the DJ or whatever they need in order to have bring in their own sounds or play, again, canned music. Just having different options for that. Flexibility is really important in a lot of restaurant spaces, and making sure that they have the right vibe for what they're going for. So let's see if I remember right. That should be the last slide. Yes, it is. So again, that's the kind of the core of the things we'll be talking about all in the first meeting. I think the only thing I didn't have here was just going to go visit the recital hall briefly, just so people know where it is. But again, we've gone over the core parts of the course, the material from the first day. Again, I did not go through this in nearly the same amount of detail as the textbook. I'm going to have some of that in the Canvas page for you all, so definitely check that out. Make sure you're not missing out on the discussion that's going to follow this chapter. And if you have any questions about anything at all, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here to help you as much as I can. I've got you've got my email address. You can get to me through Canvas, as well as my office. It's on the 3rd floor. It's the only office up there. I've got office hours set for Tuesday and Thursday in the early afternoon. But if you're unavailable, then just shoot me an email, and we'll schedule a time. So that's all I've got, and I will see you all the next time that I see you. All right, bye.